This is Shu Hirata's Let's Talk Japanese Fight Sports with Charlie Jewett from sogokaku.com. Let's begin. Hey, Merry Christmas and
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you too.
early Happy New Year's.
Yeah. You guys do anything fun for the holidays?
Not much. I've been working kind of busy, and
Yeah, it's
New
busy
Year's
time of year.
meaning tomorrow is the weigh-ins of RIZIN 45.
Exactly.
Now, I heard that you are not attending the show this year.
No. Well, normally for the New Year's Eve show, I like to go just like as a fan, and my
Uh-huh.
wife and her friends come along with me, but the tickets are just
Ah,
kind of pretty expensive. And then combine that with getting to the event and getting back from the event, we decided this year
that's
just to
true.
watch it on the big screen TV, order some
Right.
pizzas, and watch it
Now,
in
it's a
style.
pay-per-view by Abema TV, right, this year?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess you next is not doing anything.
Do not think so. No.
Hmm.
Interesting.
I mean, that's pretty
Maybe
interesting
Rising got
because you next, I think you know how you next did big thing for Bellator Japan and that show Virtual Rising show, but now all of a sudden they're not doing this New Year's Eve. They gave Abema an exclusive, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, didn't Abema also get the exclusive for the match?
I think so. The match Abema got the exclusive.
So I'm wondering if maybe Abema just kind of paid Rising more to get the exclusive.
Well, here's
It's not
what it is. I
exclusive.
think the fact that the Abema did the match, that they already have those contact info of all these, whatever the number of the
Oh,
pay-per-view buys they did. So it would be much easier for them to reach out to these people to really, to try to market the pay-per-view instead of
right.
you next who really didn't have that kind of a contact list, right? So I think it's fair to assume the Bellator Japan and the last, Ultra Show Rising show didn't do too much of a pay-per-view as expected.
Yeah,
So
because
maybe it's making sense for Abema to take not take over, but I think they can come up with the more realistic numbers.
well, maybe it's actually already been effective because I think Sakakibara said that the pre-sales for this year have already doubled the pre-sales from last year.
Could see that, right?
So maybe the Abema is doing a pretty good job reaching out to people with advertising.
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, if they let's say, I mean, just I'm only saying throwing the numbers, but if they sold like let's say 500,000 pay-per-views on like that match, they have that email addresses and contact info and the card info. It's 500,000 people who are fight fans. So it's a direct marketing, so it makes it much easier, right? So
Yeah, much easier.
So yeah, exactly. And it's a New Year's Eve show, which is like almost like in Japan, it's a customary to watch fight event on New Year's Eve.
Right.
And like you know that very well. So now I think is it fair to say that the main event of this year's New Year's Eve is sort of like for hardcore fans instead of like entertainment fans in Japan? Because there was a
Yeah.
Mayweather's and all kinds of stuff, but not it's Horiguchi versus Shinryu.
Well, going into the event, for some reason, I was kind of convinced that, like, in my mind, that Pacquiao was going to be somehow involved with this and
Hmm.
be the main event. But that didn't happen. And so now, yeah, we at least the main portion of the card is actually all pretty solid, like MMA matches for hardcore MMA fans. And Horiguchi
Right,
Shinryu
because
is pretty good at.
I can tell you right now, I think they were considering Pacquiao for so-called entertainment, part of the Rising show, and Horiguchi versus Shinryu could be the so-called hardcore competitive MMA prefer fans, type of main event. But I think they couldn't come up through with Pacquiao, so
Right.
that's replaced by Hiramoto versus Yama.
Yeah, because it looks like I think some Thai promoter actually booked Pacquiao to fight Buakaw
Yes,
for
Buakaw, right? So he's
like
picked.
10 million baht. but so but I actually remember Sakakibara was saying that one of the things he liked about this card was that he kind of shows that Rising can do everything. They can have like the
Uh-huh.
entertaining bouts on there, but also the bouts for the hardcore MMA fans.
Yeah,
This
but entertainment bouts means they're talking about the fights like Hiramoto versus Yaman and even his
exactly,
younger brother against Yushi kind of stuff, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Right, but that kind of lacks international flavor though, compared to like a Mayweather impact or
Well,
Pacquiao impact. That's huge difference.
the Pacquiao Buakaw thing is interesting because I know they said 10 million baht, which I looked up is like $290,000. But if you look more into it, the promoter in charge of this has a huge budget. They have a budget
Mm.
of like 85 million or something crazy for this
So it's got to be way more than like I cannot picture like Pacquiao doing this for like less than millions of dollars. You
I
know
know,
what I
and
mean?
he's having those legal issues with his management team in the US where he's like potentially having to pay money. So I think he's on a little
Oh,
make as much money as I can tour outside of the
hmm.
US and take it to the Philippines where they can't stop me.
Yeah, I could imagine. I'm not really expert in the Philippine, law, but if he fights in Philippines, gets paid in Philippines, much you can do if you're American management company, right?
Exactly, yeah.
If he really doesn't have any presence.
Yeah, so and plus, I mean,
Mhm.
this is a huge fight anyway. Just Wukow is a big recognized international name, hero in
Big time,
Thailand.
right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a big bout. I would just but when I saw how big the budget was, it kind of made sense
Hmm.
that he chose them over Ryzen. 'Cause, like, their
Yeah,
budget's
of
like
course.
85 mil. That's a ton of money.
And I guess they're expecting a decent pay-per-view buy from the North America and the other part of the world too, right? I guess.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. So, not
Well, they've
much.
been kind of doing some stuff like this with Buakaw because I think they also had a fight with him in Kota Miura that was like technically an exhibition.
Hmm.
I don't know what's going
All
on with
right.
all these
Well,
exhibition matches because now we have Buakaw going in exhibition matches. You have Pacquiao doing exhibition matches.
right. But there's no exhibition matches in Rising on New Year's Eve this year.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah. So let's look at a couple fights. I mean, what do you? I mean,
Let's
I
talk
won't
about
talk
talk
about the
about.
predictions on the main event because Shindu is my client. But
Can I,
what do you
can I
think
ask
about
about
that
that
fight?
fight though? My
Yeah,
issue.
sure.
So I had a question about that fight. So in for this event,
Hmm.
Rising has been leaning into the YouTube aspect of
Yeah.
promotion, and they have
Okay.
released a ton of content already promoting this event.
Right.
And I believe it was the confessions video that focused on Horiguchi and Shinyu, where
Hmm.
Horiguchi just kept talking about how Shinyu should have continued in the last fight. And I believe that was the one where you were actually featured in the confession video explaining
Hmm.
that it's not that he
Hmm.
didn't choose to continue, it's that the doctor asked if he could see, and that's why they stopped the fight.
Right.
But I just thought it was kind of weird that Horiguchi was talking about how he should have continued and then talking about how he got headbutted in a fight and kept going. Because in the previous sentence, I believe Horiguchi was talking about like how, oh, fighters need to be honorable. I don't like this talking trash. And then he like proceeded to immediately talk trash, like after
Well, that's
saying that.
maybe because he changed his mind because Shindu's style is like talking trash, right? Almost, right?
Wait, well, didn't
And I
Shinju
think
say
I
he was?
saw the
Didn't Shinju
Horiguchi
say he was going to
criticize
kill him?
Shindu.
Shinju said he
Yeah,
was
something
going to
like
kill
that,
him.
right? Or murder or whatever that is. And he said the choice of words are not that good, And
Right.
some fans are criticizing him not having a lack, having a lack of educations and stuff, you know.
Mhm.
But again, I think even the UFC press conference, like how Colby Covington did to Leon Edwards, which is pretty bad, but people think it's okay to even bring on religions and families and everything else and try to stir things up.
Right.
Yeah, and they think it's just the style of fight sports. It's the trend of fight sports these days. Seems
Well,
like, you know?
it seems like a giant trend, especially. Well, we can get into this later. When we talk about the breaking down influence,
Yes. Yeah.
but it is most definitely becoming a normal thing in Ryzen.
Right. But when you really think about it, though, like in the other sports, who really made it? The names from those trash talks. Not really though. Like Muhammad Ali was a poet, right? In a way, he
Right.
wasn't like a real dirty trash talk. And guys who had a trash talk, like in like let's say Larry Bird in NBA, it's not like he was trash talking people in public on
I
the
mean, yeah,
court when
that
they
was
talk
just
about it,
that was just
kind of stuff.
mental. That was mental
Exactly,
warfare with the other guys. Yeah,
exactly right. So it's just
true.
totally different right now.
Well, also, I think the thing that gets lost in translation because I know that a lot of Japanese fighters will like look at like people like a Nate Diaz or a Nick Diaz, or they'll see like a Chael
Hmm.
Sonnen kind of fighter, and Chael Sonnen or Conor McGregor, obviously the biggest trash talker. I think the
Hmm.
thing that's lacking is like Chael Sonnen was always kind of tongue in cheek, and it was always like funny.
He
Conor
was
McGregor's always had like a sense of humor to it, or the Japanese
exactly
one is
right,
just like you're stupid. What did the
right.
guy say? What did he, didn't like Yama just yell at Ren Hiramoto? Just baka. He just called him stupid to
Yeah,
his
or
face.
something like that. It's just there's no inner intelligence, and
It's
it
not even
just leaves
it's
a
not
little
created.
displeasure, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But it's,
yeah, it's too bad, and they're not really even thinking about the branding or like character,
yeah.
or marketing, none of that. So
Well, I did laugh though when
yeah,
I found out that Ren is just like harassing Yaman in his DMs on social media. Yeah, that's the mental warfare. But no, but so maybe
like
you can
I
talk about
always say this, I do not control any of our clients' social media. I
right,
let them do whatever they want to do because I think we're in an era where it's not like that in the old days, right?
right. Well,
So
now that we're already talking about it, I guess before we get into the fights,
hmm.
so we have Ren Hiramoto, your client, obviously famous for talking trash. We have Ampo, who is talking crazy trash going into this event.
Hmm.
We have Catfish, who's also talking crazy trash going into this event.
Hmm.
He's got like the face tattoos,
Right.
and Ren's got the tattoos. They're all wearing sunglasses in all of their interviews, even though it's like in a dark room. And I just can't help but think that breaking down has had its impact because I didn't think that breaking down, I always thought that in the beginning that it would kind of be separate from MMA,
Hmm.
but it seems like it's actually people are like, oh, these breaking down guys are really popular. So we got to like act like thugs, talk trash, and wear like be the Mikuru, wear sunglasses at all times, just no matter where we are. And just seems to, and also, when my wife and I went to a show actually recently, she
Uh-huh.
said she's like noticed the rising fan base has like changed.
Oh, I
It's like a
bet.
lot younger people. It's a lot more of these like
Hmm.
Mikuru fans, Ren Hiramoto fans, a lot more young people who are just like more in your face that are kind of louder. It's pretty interesting to see the impact that this kind of new generation has had. The hardcore fans will always be there, but the casual fans that are coming, kind of the demographic has changed.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm telling you right now, the breaking down thing, a lot of viewers on that show are not exactly looking for fights. They
No, not at all.
enjoy their auditions and the brawl at the press conference and stuff like that. Right? And I can tell you this right now. I do look at the surveys, and I wouldn't say majority, but there's a big chunk of fan base of that breaking down watches breaking down to just laugh about it. It's not like they're really looking forward to see them being successful or
Right, of
fight
course.
or admire what they do, respect what they say. None of that. They make
No, no.
fun of them.
It's like watching a car accident
Yes,
because the
exactly.
most extreme example to me was Catfish. His confessions video was just like
Hmm.
absolutely insane. He was like, I don't need to train MMA. This is a fight. I'm a street fighter. I'm gonna go out there and just f this guy up because I'm a street fighter. I was just like, okay. Like, do you not realize you're fighting an Olympic wrestler? This is going to go very poorly for you.
Yeah, I know, but I guess some younger people think it's like a new kind of way to get successful, sort of like a
Oh yeah.
YouTuber or like a 90s DJ, whatever that is, like a new thing, you know?
Well, it's kind of interesting because a lot of the people doing it are kickboxers,
Right.
and I think what we've realized also recently is I think a lot of K1 fighters, especially,
Hmm.
weren't making a lot of money fighting,
Exactly.
and
That's why
then
they think that's the way to
yeah,
attract the sponsors,
mhm.
to get
Because
ahead in your rising, that type of
you see
stuff,
the K1 guys, and they'll have like 100 sponsors on their uniforms because they're just trying to get any money they can, and so then they see these guys like Yaman going breaking down, completely changes the trajectory of his career, launches him up. He's making good money now, probably, I hope. Launched his own promotion on Abima, fought Mikuru Asakura. So you got to think that all these guys are just trying to copy that to make some money.
Right. So It's like if you're a baseball player, you just create your own league. I think it's
No.
just a more entrepreneurial kind of thing to do. You know?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, that's what they think. And I don't know. In the day when like Shohei Ohtani signed $700 million deals, I don't know why some athlete doesn't realize that if you really go for a top of the competitive professional sports world, the money you're going to make is not even comparison to the money you're going to get from 100 sponsors.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's not like this is a sport, so it's not like you start when you're like 25 years old and catch up with the
Right.
guys who's been wrestling or judo for ever since age 4 and 5 kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very very interesting era. But in today, I mean, day after tomorrow's RIZIN, I think the last at least 3 cards for the hardcore fans.
Yeah.
Horiguchi versus Shinryu, Archuleta
Well,
versus
especially
Asakura, Koike versus
Horiguchi Shin is
Kaito.
especially for the hardcore fans because
Oh yeah.
the first fight kind of got stopped prematurely because of the eye poke,
Hmm.
and so I feel like fans have been waiting for this for a long time.
Very long time.
And I kind of agree with what some of the not all of it, like when Shinyu was kind of saying like, "Oh, this is kind of like the future of MMA, like the next best fighter on the Japanese scene will be decided with this fight." So I think a lot
Hmm.
of the hardcore fans are interested in it.
Right.
Did you see that? Going on to the next one, did you see that Kai Asakura said he spent $60,000 on this training camp?
I wouldn't be surprised if he flew that many people in and got housed them up for like a month. And I'm pretty sure he had to hire a driver or whatever that is to drive them around,
Well, I
food.
know he flew in a wrestling coach from the US,
Okay. And
and
also the another coach, right? That he met
right, and
in
then they said he flew in
Vegas.
some sparring partner, but that guy's actually fighting on the card, so I'm not going to
All
count
right.
that as him
Okay.
paying for that guy to come out. So, but man, it's
But he
just
probably had to come out early, so that part of the
true.
trip he financed it. And I
Did you
think
see?
he probably offered some fees, right, to the
Right, but
coaches, of course.
he's made it very clear that like the UFC is his goal. Even in his confessions video at the very end, he was like, "My
Mm-hmm.
goal is to go to the UFC." And
Great.
of the two Asakura brothers, I always thought he was the better fighter,
I always thought so
and
too. Yeah.
he has the best chance. But I was just thinking, like, is he going to go to the UFC and get like 5-5? What's like?
Well, here's what it is though. Because of that lawsuit going on, that antitrust lawsuit, and
Yeah,
this, they're supposed to start the trial in April. If they're going to settle before that, or they're going to try, whatever that is, I think depends on that lawsuit. I think the industry is going to change.
yeah,
Depends on the results of that lawsuit. So, uh, I'm assuming that even though Ty wants to go to UFC, since he's doing the title fight right now, if he wins, I'm pretty sure there's a championship clause. And I'm
okay,
pretty sure he's hooked to fight for at least maybe 2 or 3 more fights, right? So that's another year. So by then the industry might change just
it's
drastically.
true.
So
Yeah,
yeah, to answer your question, he could end up gaining way more. Who knows? Because he is a
true.
draw, right? So who knows? I mean, I think him.
Well, if
I
the
told the same
UFC
thing to
wants to
Shinju
come to,
too.
if the UFC is interested in coming to Japan, he'd be a brilliant signing for them.
Right.
But I don't.
And not only that, UFC always wants to fight and assign the best fighters in the world. And if he
True,
beats Archuleta, that will give them a reason, right? Almost.
exactly.
And
Well,
same for
Archuleta
the
be
Shinryu too. Right.
well if Shinya beats Horiguchi, or if Kai beats Archuleta, those are huge opponents for them to beat, and
It
they could probably
is.
go wherever they wanted after that if they didn't have the championship
But
belts.
again, Shinryu has a championship clause too. I mean,
Exactly.
almost any promotion when you fight for title fight, it's not like you can just walk off,
Are
you
you
know?
saying that Rising finally learned their lesson
Well, in terms of Shinryu's contract, yes, I can't speak for
after
everybody
after
else,
Han
but
Sohee just like
I'm
left for one championship?
I'm pretty sure Asakura is pretty tied up too. At least
Yeah.
2, 3 fights. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a crazy lawyer for his manager though, so who knows?
Right. But here's also, I mean, for Asakura, if he beats in Archuleta, I think that'll put him in a very good place in the market.
Yeah, of
So if
course.
I were his manager, I wouldn't even try to approach UFC till the lawsuit's over. Even though
Wait
he
out.
can't contractually. Yeah, I'll wait out.
Interesting. Yeah, good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. And same for Shindu, that would be my suggestion. But Mr. Shindu she's always anxious to fight. And we have a schedule for next year, which I can't reveal. So we pretty much know what's gonna happen to like up to like June. And
Okay.
Shindu just wants to keep on fighting. He think he's not gonna get injured. You know, he wants to keep on fighting and earn money. You know.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
But
I think it's kind of obvious on this lineup. If he beats Horiguchi, I think he would probably have to fight the winner of Okikubo and Dotson to
yeah,
defend the title, right? I think only
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
If you
So I
went
think
over
that will
Dotson,
be on
would
the
have
big
raised his
show,
stock even higher.
right? So that in the same theory, I think I'm rising stupid. His matchmaker, Mr. Kasuragi, is probably thinking if the Kai beats Archuleta, he probably have somebody else in mind, right?
Yeah.
For Kai, fight. So in the same token, let's talk about we can skip maybe Koike and Hiramoto fight because we pretty much know what's going on. But let's let's talk about Miyu and Seika.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, since Miyu is retiring after this fight, regardless,
Yeah, this fight
right?
kind of stuck out to me because well, they tried to set it for earlier in the year, but
Hmm.
Miyu was such a big deal for them when they brought her into
Yes,
Ryzen.
yes,
It's hard to, for people outside of Japan. It's hard to explain, but her brother was ridiculously famous kid.
right,
But not just that, she was ridiculously famous in her own right.
right. And so
She
his younger sister, who is
and
married to
her,
Yu Darvish,
she and her sister are like played big roles in wrestling, women's wrestling becoming part of the Olympics because
it's
they
like
were
a
so
pioneer,
popular beforehand.
right?
And their father was an Olympic wrestler himself.
Hmm.
And I believe Mia was married to Inson Inoue at the time. Her
Yeah,
sister's
at
now
the
married to Yu
time.
Darvish. So it's just like this.
Hmm.
No matter what this family does, it seems to be famous somehow.
It's like a
And
professional sports celebrity family, right? Like,
exactly, it's kind of like it's a bad example to say like they're almost like the Japanese version of the Gracies, just like
yeah,
this
yeah,
is the
almost, right,
combat sports family of Japan. They even
right.
have Yamamoto, which is like the most stereotypical like Japanese warrior name that you could think of. So I
If
mean,
they're American family, I'm pretty sure it'd be some kind of reality show,
yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly. And, and plus, to look as their genetics are ridiculous. To look as jacked as she does at her age is
oh,
insane.
I know.
But
They're very
I just wanted to
naturally
highlight
talented, gifted athletes.
when Rising started the women's division. I believe originally they're trying to convince Megumi Fuji to come out of retirement, but
Hmm.
she was just kind of like too beat up and beyond that point. I think she was having a
Yeah,
child.
she won't be able to do that. She has knee problems and back problems. She's damaged. So
But so when they launched the women's division in Japan, the two big stars they brought in were Rena and they brought in Miyu. I mean, the weight division
hmm
is essentially 49 kilograms. This isn't official, but it's that weight because that's the weight Rena could make. Like it's like
right. I mean,
we
it's a
jokingly
super
call it Rena
atom
weight.
weight, whatever it is. Yeah, it's a perfect weight for both Miyu and Rena.
And their first fight was huge.
Right.
And they had so like they were the things that helped launch the women's division. They had the whole tournament also based around them. So they're a
Hmm.
big deal. And so her retiring is also a big deal because the women's division, while they had the super atomweight tournament last year, this year they only had 3 fights, I believe,
Yeah, I
at
mean,
super
it's
atomweight.
almost dead. The women's division is almost dead in Rise.
It's the lowest. That's like the only times it's as low as it was during the pandemic, 2020,
Hmm.
and the very first year where they only had 4 events. Like every other, like it went from the tournament just crashed. And I mean, Seika Izawa is getting more popular, but she's not like a overly charismatic person. She doesn't have like the family history or anything to spark the interest. She doesn't have
Hmm.
like the marketability of like a Rena figure. And I'm also hearing some murmurings that perhaps it's not just things you hear from people that Rising might actually be more interested at 52 kilograms now at strawweight.
Maybe.
I've
Right.
just heard because they've made it clear this division's weird because they have fighters like Saudi Oshima and people like that who Rising's not really interested in. Like they're not people they're making fights for.
Right.
Saudi Oshima will contact them and be like, I hear you have this person fighting. I want to fight. I'll be their opponent. It's kind of the situation those fighters are in. And so the core division they had is Miyuu Yamamoto, Ayaka Hamasaki, Seika Izawa and like Kana Asakura. Those are like the girls of the atomweight division, and they just bring
Hmm.
people in for them to fight. Well, the
Right.
problem is almost all those people are near the end of their careers, if not barely fighting. And they brought Machi in at 52 kilograms, and I
Who
hear
just
that
lost too in Deep Jewels.
they brought Machi in, who I've heard is adamant that she refuses to drop to 48 kilo. Like
Right.
she's not going below 52. So
No.
they didn't bring Ayaka Watanabe in. They brought Machi in, and Watanabe was like brought forward to be Machi's opponent. So
Hmm.
like Machi was who they're interested in. Machi won that fight, and then Machi all of a sudden gets a strawweight title fight in Deep. So it seems like they're doing all the works to help promote her, but then she loses that fight. They kind of
Right.
derailed all of that. But I wouldn't be
Yeah, I think
surprised if
this is
they
the hard part about like professional sports in a way though, because it's after all it's a competition. So it's a good thing you mentioned finally Ayaka in there.
yeah,
Exactly, you're right that they created the division around Arena and Miyu. It's
right.
obvious, but the bottom line was that Ayaka was like a much better fighter.
Oh yeah, when
So
she
she
came
ended
back
up
from the US,
destroying.
yeah.
Yeah, she
But
basically ended up destroying Kana, destroying like every best the Kana who destroyed Rena, and the Rena got beat by the girl who combated Global. So right now, they just don't have any reason to promote these fighters as a world class fighters now. You
well,
know,
Hamasaki was interesting though because she's not like overly charismatic.
no,
She's not traditionally marketable, but because she had gone to the US and kicked a bunch of ass, she was popular. People were like, "This girl's one of the best fighters in the world," and they were able to like build a brand around that image.
exactly. The key word is branding. She
Yeah,
had that branding of a fighter who became a number one in the world in America. It's same
right,
kind of I talked to Naoki a lot about that. In the beginning, they were marketing him as the youngest fighter to sign with the UFC. Came back from
right.
New York, so that was the branding. But now he became one of them in Japan. So it's same thing for Ayaka. She showed her like strength, and she basically dominated for a while.
Mhm.
But then I don't think her number was really in terms of viewership was not that as high as Reina and Miyu's.
Yeah,
Then now she's still losing to Seika, and I'm pretty sure Seika versus Hamasaki's numbers are not as good as Reina versus Miyu.
oh,
You know what I mean? So
Seika. I think Seika versus Park did absolutely terrible numbers
I think so too, right? I don't have the
because
numbers, I don't know, but I could tell pretty much.
Park is an exciting striker, but she's also just like a charisma vacuum.
Hmm.
She just is not the most charismatic person. When you put both of them together, it's kind of difficult to promote some brand. They need some help with the branding because Seika has the skill set. She just needs a little help. But that's what's kind of interesting about Miyu, though, is that she doesn't do like crazy social media numbers.
No.
But because of her history, like everybody knows who she is in Japan.
Right.
Like
I think
that's
I
how.
told you this before that I talked to the Yahoo Japan guys and they have this certain numbers to classify who has more recognition level and blah blah blah. They all told me that Miyuu Yamamoto still has one of the highest recognition level among any rising fighters to the
It's
general public.
not
You
just
know?
rising fighters. Like I'll talk to people at work or when I'm out
Yeah,
drinking,
no.
and I have never met someone who doesn't know who Miyuu Yamamoto is.
Exactly right. So basically, I think it's fair to say she's a household name.
Yeah, hundred
She's
percent.
probably more known than maybe Horiguchi even, right?
Oh,
In terms
no,
of
she.
general
That's
public.
not even a question. She is more known than Horiguchi.
Right.
She and her sister are probably some of the most famous
Seiko.
female athletes of all time in like Japanese history.
Right.
It's
So,
crazy how
but
long it's endured because she was popular almost before the Kakutogi boom of like the late
way
90s.
before, way before,
It just
you
endured
know?
because they would, whenever kid would fight, they'd always show her and her sister like sitting ringside,
Right.
cheering them on and everything.
And if
Yeah,
I'm correct, I think she did do some wrestling bout in like women's pro wrestling promotion when they did the big show in
she
Dome or
did. It was
somewhere else.
huge. I think they
Right?
did like the
Yeah.
Tokyo Dome or something, and it did
That's
huge
right. Yeah, I
numbers.
remember seeing that. Yeah. So I mean she was a big name to big enough a name to become a so-called special guest, right? On the big Dome show. So that
So,
tells everything about her.
well, this is no coincidence that Rising angled for her retirement opponent to be Seika because they're trying to get a little
Oh,
bit of rub on
right.
Seika. But
And I think it's kind of fair to assume that Seika is going to win this, and I guess she'll pass the torch to Seika. But I'm not sure if
yeah,
they can pass the torch in terms of popularity, right, and the recognition level.
well, the issue is it could be an interesting fight just based off the fact that it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens if Seika can't take Miyu down because she's not going to
I
out
think
wrestle her.
she right,
She's
but
got
I
the
think
pull.
she'll be fine attacking from the bottom
I think
off
she'll
her
just pull
back.
guard. I think she'll just pull
Yeah, yeah,
guard or
yeah.
something like that.
Right.
But yeah, so Seika should probably win, but it is the retirement of probably like maybe the most well-known female fighter in the promotion. So it's a big deal.
Right. So it's a big deal. So I think Rising is trying to get as much as like a popularity of Seika from this fight, basically, right? So,
Yeah,
but then what's after this for her? Because in terms of a Japanese MMA, you mentioned Machi just lost. So another one you
right,
can think about is the ex-baseball player who just became a champion, Arisa Matsuda, right? Of the
right.
Jewels. That's a strawweight. So if Seika is willing to go up to 115, I think that matchup could happen.
Yeah,
You know.
it's not.
But most of the time, Rising thinks that when you book somebody new like Matsuda, they would want her to fight somebody else first and win to build her name.
Yeah.
So that's always the pattern for in the Rising matchmaking. So
Did Seika make her debut against Ayaka Hamasaki?
right, so that was different, right? And wasn't it a tournament or was something like that? No?
Oh no, it was before.
Yeah.
It was just like a random New Year's Eve, I think.
Oh yeah, exactly right. And it was Seika's champion at the time
Rising
already
debut. Yeah, it
for the
wasn't a
Jewels.
championship bout though.
Yeah,
It was not a
yeah.
championship bout.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
but they they need to do something with the division because it's so dead now. They need to get out there and get some of the more international fighters in. There's atom weights out there. They just need to bring them in.
Well, here's what it is. I'm pretty sure the numbers are the problem. They're not getting a new enough viewership for the female fights in Rising, and
Right.
I think the quick solution to that would be to bring in somebody from Breaking Down, you know,
They do have girls
and
there.
that
They do
might
have
boost
girls
a
there.
little bit of girls division, and that might give Shingo more freedom to book female fighters. Who knows, right?
Or the solution might be actually to like brand and promote one of them or something. But
Yeah, yeah. But again, it's hard. Like for example, if this is only if, let's say if I approach any of the breaking down fighters to see if they're willing to go to America and fight BKFC, I don't think they have skill to do it. But before that, I'm pretty sure most of them won't do it.
no.
You know what I mean? So that's the point. It's hard to find the guys who's really a girl or a competitor who's really willing to step. Because I
Mm.
know Rising has offered many breaking down fighters a fight, but many of them rejected, turned down, and said,
Well,
"Oh, there's no way I can, compete against this fight." So
well,
many of them
especially
are
the
not
girls. I think most
stupid.
of the
They
girls I'm
know
breaking down. I think most of the girls I'm breaking down are like porn stars and comedians.
exactly. So, or exactly, or like third-rate actress or talent or whatever you call it. So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So they're not stupid. They're smart. They understand. You
yeah.
know.
They don't want to die. Yeah, they understand.
Exactly. So, yeah, exactly. So, yes, I agree with you. The Rising have to find a way to promote the women's division. Otherwise, I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere. You know?
Well, if they bump it up to 52, you don't have to
Hmm.
say anything because I know you manage one of them. But I mean, if they bump it to 52. They got Seika, they got Machi. They could maybe get Marata Kaneko or something, and have a little fun division going.
Right. I think that's a fun division for hardcore fans, but for them
Yeah,
to score more higher viewership, they need something more. They need more spice.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
They really need a Rena or a Miyu type person or a
Exactly,
Tana
that kind of
Asakura.
spice, right?
Yeah,
Or like a Ren or Yaman or Ampo kind of
well,
spice. Who knows?
the only girl I could think of that's even similar to that would be like Itsuki. If they could get like Itsuki over there or something.
It's Hirata or in a way Shinji Oakley. Remember, they were hoping
Yeah,
her to be that type of fighter, but I guess not anymore.
or
And
there's her.
and Gabby Garcia, they tried, it didn't work.
Yeah,
Which is
well,
a monster division, I call it. So it's difficult, but like Conor McGregor or like a Miyu in that sense, one star could change something.
Yeah, very true.
So that might only take one star. So who is that one star? Who knows, right? I don't know.
Right. Interesting.
So besides this fight, anything else you want to talk about in Rising New Year's Eve? Like,
Oh yeah, of course. Okay about that. We were talking about that.
I'm sorry. Like, I'm only interested in my
Do you
three of
see
my
that?
opponents are fighting.
What do you
Or
think
this
about
one.
this
Yeah, go
fight? Is
ahead.
crazy to me. Okay, this fight, Arai versus Hiroya is crazy because
Yes.
Hiroya has no business being in the ring with Arai. This is
Oh, not
absolutely
at all. I
insane.
think this is going to be a massacre. I think a
I was
true massacre.
Andrew keeps saying on the We Are Rising podcast that it pays to be Mikuru's friend, and, and clearly the case here because Hiroya is from Breaking Down. He's one of the guys that trains with Mikuru,
Right.
and
And you know
I
that
saw
Joe
Mikuru.
started the YouTube channel, right?
Oh, really? I did
Yeah.
not
Oh,
know that.
and I think he posted like 2 videos. And actually, I saw first. It's pretty interesting because first of all, he lives in this small apartment in Shinjuku, but he
Hmm,
pays like only 50,000 yen, and
okay.
because somebody got murdered in the apartment,
Yeah,
and he
got to do
doesn't
what you
care.
got to do.
He doesn't see ghosts. It's kind of interesting. So, and you know how Kenji Osawa is, his master is also like a commentator. He's very active on social media. So he's hoping that win over this guy and breaking down, it would be a breakthrough for Joe. You know?
It'd be big. It would be a big win for him just because of the name. Because when I go to deep shows, Hiroya does
Hmm.
have a pretty big fan base, mostly
Oh
female.
yeah, right. I guess
And after his fights, like half the crowd gets up and leaves because he's never in the main event. But
But here's what it is. Joe, even though he's small, I think if UFC is going to continue doing Road to UFC tournament, if they're going to continue to do 125, I personally think he should try that. You know, even though
yeah,
he has
well,
like a 10, 11 losses on the record,
no, but his
or
record's
12
crazy
losses,
though because he's like
or
lost
10
nine
losses.
fights in a row and then went like an 11-fight win streak.
Yeah, exactly. So who cares about the first 9 loss, right? I mean, you always think about the last 10 fights. So
Plus, he's had a ton of knockouts for a little guy.
exactly the finisher, which is very important. And actually UFC like obviously like strikers, right?
Yeah, they do.
So I think he's the one. I personally think, you
Well, I
know.
saw Hiroya in the Mikuru interviewed him ahead of this, and he was like, "Oh, I think Arai is the better fighter, but I don't think he's unbeatable."
Hmm.
I was just like, I feel like even that is being charitable. I think he's a level way above you skill wise.
Hmm. All right, the We're Rising pocket. Which division do you think Rising is going to focus in 2024?
I mean, I think
You
it's
would have to
flyweight.
be featherweight. Yeah, for the men, I think it's going to be featherweight and bantamweight as usual. Yeah, because there are some big fights coming up, and
Well, I
I
mean,
can
the
tell you
winner of
right
the
now,
Shinryu versus
flyweight too, but it's
Takada.
not many flyweights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Uh. Because Suzuki just beat Keramov, right? And I'm pretty sure Keramov's next fight is close to being confirmed. And I can tell you, first event of the next year is February. So so I think that's when they're going to start stirring up on bantamweight and featherweight divisions.
Well, I think Arcoletta said if he beats Kai, he wants to fight Suzuki next and try to get both titles.
Well, exactly, the two-weight division. That's what I'm talking about. So that's a big hint. It's going to stir things up. I think some guys on the featherweight will drop to bantamweight.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I'm telling you this right now. I think Rising is planning a big show in summer,
Oh,
early
like their
summer,
super rising show.
or even like a Tokyo Dome or something like that. Who
Okay.
knows? That type of big shows.
Right.
So yeah, so that could happen, right? So I think everything is this show is to set up for the next year. So they'll do flyweight division fights too, but I think they'll do more on bantam and featherweights. Just the fact that there's more stars are there,
Yeah.
you know.
Interesting.
So anyway, but let's talk about this one too, since we're talking about Rising. Now, Nobuhiko Takada, who is like a supervisor, whoever that is for Rising, has
Well,
decided to
officially
leave
now he
Rising.
is. His official position recently was captain.
Oh, captain. All right, whatever that means. But now, is this like a big news in Japan?
It made the news. And
Okay.
I don't know if a lot of people are talking about it. I kind of see it as the ending of an era
Mm-hmm.
because I mean this is a guy that's been around since Pride doing, and I always felt like there was a rift between him and Sakakibara during after the Tenshin Mayweather fight. Because if you remember, Takada was doing the commentary for that fight, and after the fight, he made some comment of like, "This fight should have never been made,"
Mm-hmm.
and then that comment got a lot of criticism. And Sakakibara after the event was like, "Well, I disagree. I think I'm glad we made the fight." But then after that event, Takada was no longer the general manager. He like
Uh-huh.
stepped back from his position and
Right,
became
right,
like
right,
a
right.
spokesperson for RIZIN, which they like redubbed to captain. So I kind of felt like they had some disagreements around that time, and maybe Takada had always been kind of stepping farther and farther back from Rising since then.
Yeah, I think
And
so. I agree.
also, they
Yeah.
haven't been really using him in entrances recently in
No
opening
more, yeah,
ceremonies.
no more taiko drums and no more of
Unfortunate
right, yeah.
because I just remember the early Rising shows where he would like came out with like the whole black outfit on, or the
Mm-hmm.
year he played the trumpet. I'll miss those opening ceremonies. I always enjoyed his stuff. So feels like it's kind of the ending of an era with him leaving.
Right. And well, I don't know where he's going. He's gonna be just some kind of TV talent, right? So
Well, isn't I mean he's filthy rich, right?
well, I'm not
Right?
sure how filthy rich he is, but I think
Like
he's
he wouldn't
comfortable.
have to work again if he didn't want to. Rich. 'Cause
You know,
doesn't his
it's so
Takada
funny.
dojo make a bunch of money?
But here's what it is, though, Charlie. All these celebrities or famous people or whatever, even though they have so much money, I know a lot of people who lost so much money so quick. I'm serious. I mean, like
Yeah.
Mike Tyson is a good example, right?
Well, yeah.
Guy, like I
Hopefully
read
Takada doesn't have
some,
a doesn't have a Don King hanging around his corner. So
yeah, or like I mean, for example, even Takada, he used to open some restaurants he failed. You know, like
okay.
it's really funny. A lot of sports, like professional sports athletes, after their retirement, they invest on restaurant chains. It happens a lot. In many
Restaurants are like
cases,
one
they
of the biggest
fail.
failure. What 90% of restaurants fail in the first 2 years or
Right,
something.
exactly. I mean, I think Takada used to own a restaurant called Mongolian food called Mongolian Chops or something like that. And that's nowhere to be found right now. You know?
Yeah, but I have a feeling because he has that giant wrestling school. He's got to have some money.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm sure. And he's coming from that old era of Japanese pro wrestling, who probably has the big sponsors who's
Yeah.
supporting him as well. It's like that in the Japanese sports, especially in the fight sports. So yeah, I
But
wouldn't be surprised.
it was kind of interesting though,
Yeah.
because Sakakibara said that he had hoped that Takada would be part of the opening ceremony and everything for the New Year's Eve. And Takada just kind of like blew it off, like, no, I don't want to do it. So
Yeah, I
maybe
guess
there's more
he
going on behind the scenes than we know.
I think so too. But I think if I'm correct, Takada maybe even managed by Sakakibara's another company.
Oh,
Who
really?
knows? So yeah, I'm not sure. So don't quote me on this, but recently Takada signed with some is it a employment agency commercials or something like that? He was on some pretty big national TV commercials, so maybe he's got a new thing going out
Hmm.
there.
Yeah,
You know?
interesting.
And let's talk about this one at the end. I forgot about this. Is one championship in Japan. This yeah, because
Have
that's
you
gonna
seen
affect
have you seen the pictures of Ratatang?
no.
So you
You
know
mean
the
the
big
injured one?
oh injured one. There
Yeah,
is
about
a
what?
bunch of pictures where he's never showing his hand. Like when people
Oh,
take pictures
really?
of Ratatang, he always has his hand behind something.
Oh, so he's injured
So like
for
all of his
sure.
social media posts and stuff recently, it's just like his girlfriend standing in front of his arm, like his arm behind his
Mhm.
back. So he's
Well,
clearly injured.
here's what it is. I think somebody else asked me about Swift. There you go. There you go. Daniel said, "Do you think there is a chance for established male strawweight division in Rising?" I think if the Joe Arise fights is super exciting and he gets popularity, they might
Yeah,
because there are a lot of strawweight fighters in Japan, and on top of that, the guy like Yamakita in one championship, and
mhm,
right now there's a rumor going on that one championship may be in trouble by the end of next year, kind of stuff. And
yeah,
if
financial
Yamakita
trouble.
end up being like a free agent, then yeah, there's plenty of reason for them to establish that strawweight division for male. You know,
Right.
so that could happen. And now, what's the feedback from the Japanese fans on the announced card so far for this one championship
Well,
Japan show?
I was at the Pancrase 340 show on Sunday,
Okay.
and I was
Hmm.
talking to some fans in the crowd that I know are guys that like go to everything, and I couldn't help but laugh because the first thing they said when I brought it up was they don't want to buy tickets because they heard if they wait long enough, one championship will give tickets away for free.
That's bad.
So, but outside of that, I mean, Takeda is a big deal. Doesn't matter if he's fighting Ratatong or not. People will go see him fight. I think the issue is though the event's like fairly expensive. I think it's the same price as like a RIZIN show. Like the
Mm.
cheapest tickets are like what is it, 13,000 yen?
I think Takeru versus Rota alone, they think they can pull that, right? It's like a big boxing title
Right.
fight, and everything else is just a little bit lesser, attraction. So
Yeah,
I think
but
for Rotan to be able to fight is super crucial.
it's
You know?
Itsuki will Itsuki. I don't know if she's a draw, but she gets a lot of attention. But I don't know if she sells tickets. If that makes sense, because she's kind of a
I'm not sure if
controversial.
she fights Miura, right?
Well, it's kind of a weird matchmaking. Is I think they just want
Hmm.
one of the Japanese fighters to win, so they're having two Japanese fighters fight each other. But when I see that fight, it's just a battle of Yamamoto Ursin's ex-girlfriends, so it seems kind of weird.
I forgot about that. That's true.
I'm like, are they gonna have him like sitting cage side? Like this is just kind of a weird thing going on. But yeah, it's kind of a weird matchmaking because they're both kind of in the nicest way possible, one-dimensional judo fighters, and so it's gonna just turn into a weird judo match.
Yeah,
If
probably a
anything,
grappling match. They're not going to strike that much, because Ayaka is going to try to grab her and get into
yeah, go
that
for her scarf
her
hold
only.
choke.
Yeah,
Go for her scarf hold.
right. So,
But I
and
mean,
I'm sure that
Itsuki
Itsuki
gets
is going to try to avoid.
Miyoto's not a big like she's. I don't know if she's a big mover, but Itsuki will get a lot of attention.
Right. I mean, this is
Um,
when Itsuki should be doing a lot of striking training, which she should
oh,
be continuing to be doing, but she has been in Japan, so I have no idea what she's
I
doing.
don't even know
So
where she's. I mean, I know that Miyota trains at Tribe, but I have no idea where she trains in Japan.
I have no idea too. So
I,
yeah.
I saw
So I mean,
saw her brother fight at Pancrase. He won. But outside of that,
yeah, and
not a lot of people are talking about it.
hmm
I was at another gym where there were some fighters there that had fought and won championship previously,
hmm
and even in Japan, the news of one's financial problems is pretty well known, and
I'm pretty sure.
people have kind of gotten wise to one championship, and some of their like shortcomings, I would say, like the
Hmm.
strict contracts, a lot of negative news recently. So I think
Hmm.
that's kind of been the more dominant news about one is less about the event in Japan and like, oh, they're having money problems, they're having these crazy contracts, fighters are leaving.
That's too bad, though. It's not just good for the sport if the big one goes away like that. And
Yeah.
so, if they are not successful in this show, I mean, this may be the end of one championship Japan show for a while.
Well, if they can get Takeda versus Radatong, I think they'll sell a lot of tickets.
I hope
But
so, and because that will give Abema more reason to keep supporting them, right? But if this
yeah,
show doesn't turn out to be a good one, Abema has to start wondering about their sort of partnership with one championships.
yeah. I mean, plus, I mean, what did Chatri say that he wants to do 4 events in Japan this year?
Hmm. Something
I
like
just
that,
don't.
but I
I
think
don't
that's
see that's,
too ambitious.
I just don't see that's possible. But I know that
Right.
like
I mean, not the
fighters
big shows. Maybe they can do small shows, like they did a couple times, remember? Like
won
during the
championship Korakuen
COVID.
Hall.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or that's fall. Right. So they could
No,
do
but
that, with Alabama.
I think if they want to do well at this event, they're going to need to announce some more fights with some Japanese fighters on them,
Hmm.
and they're going to need a couple more big names,
Yeah.
especially if Radatong falls off the card.
Right. And I think, since they have a bunch of top kickboxers, if they can do some deal with K1, bring in
That'd be
some of
great.
their popular fighters,
Yeah,
yeah, that'll boost up their, attentions and ticket sales. So, it's
just
it's the end of January, right? January 28th. So it is
yeah.
like about a month to go. Let's hope they're gonna come up with a better,
I
more,
don't
interesting matchmake.
I don't know how big of a draw Shinya Aoki is anymore outside of hardcore fans.
Yeah,
And
not necessarily. He's a real hardcore fans. Yeah, that's right.
and I think most of Itsuki's fans are outside of Japan. So I don't know how big
Right.
of a draw she'll
So
be in Japan. I don't,
yeah.
Miura's not a draw really. Who's the guy that's a champ? There's a Japanese kickboxing champion in one championship, right?
Right, but he's not the big draw. But they should book him too if he's healthy, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, it'll at least get interest because he's a champion.
Hmm.
But be interesting. They're gonna
Right,
toss
so it's
Aki.
too, yeah, I guess you're
Too
right
early
because
to
I'm not
tell.
really hearing too much, about this show from any other people, you know?
Well, I think historically January is always kind of a dead month for
Hmm.
combat sports because it's kind of like that post New Year's Eve hangover that kind of
Right,
goes
right.
on where not a lot happens. So it's a good time because nothing else will be happening. They just need to announce the fights and they need to announce them soon.
Hmm. Well, let's hope they'll come up with a couple more good ones, right? So they'll boost the pay-per-view sales, hopefully. You know?
Well, it's kind of I
Mhm.
think that they're being way too ambitious. They should have lowered the ticket prices. I think seems
Yeah.
kind of
But
expensive.
against once you lower, it's hard to come back up. So I think they're leaning towards trying to book better fights than lowering price. I think
That's
that's
fair.
what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes
All
sense.
right. So I guess that's it for today.
Let me check my notes real quick. See if there's
Yeah.
anything to add.
So let's see. We talked about breaking down future. Yeah. Pacquiao.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. Yeah,
So, have a nice new year. And I guess we'll come back in a couple of weeks or so. We talk about the New Year's Eve show.
yeah. We can talk about Sarah Kubo's live performance and how awesome it was.
I forgot about that too. So, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So I hope everyone had a good New Year. Is going to have a good New Year,
Yeah.
and we'll talk again in the year 2024.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right, and have a nice New Year's.
You too. You too.
All right. Bye bye.